All right. Welcome, everyone. Not much to update on the market today. Really, we're working with the same exact analysis that we were working with on Monday. And essentially, we were just kind of waiting for Bitcoin to do something significant on lower time frames in the form of weakness to test a brand new higher time frame trend as of the past Saturday, right? So it's a fresh trend. It's just 3 or 4 days old, right? Or we're waiting for that exact same trend to continue into our next area of interest. And that area of interest is just simply this 47K region where we have daily supply as well as our 200 daily moving averages. Right. So the current mentality for Bitcoin on a high time frame is just simply we're going to test one resistance into the next resistance. And if this resistance breaks and we flip that region, we'll probably head up to test the next resistance. And if we break that one as well, then we're just going to assume we get to the next resistance. If we break this one, we're just going to assume that we make our way into new all-time highs because truthfully there's not too much supply in that zone. But we're taking things level by level. We have an expectation in mind, right? And that expectation is just simply further upside. We can justify that expectation when we look at this 4 hour time frame. Right. So previously we were saying, hey, this is a sign of weakness. This might lead to who knows 53K, 47K, 40K, maybe 30K, maybe 24K, maybe a full blown bear market. I don't know. Maybe Bitcoin goes to zero from here. Right. We had that as an expectation, and we were justifying that expectation with, hey, we're creating lower highs, right, and lower lows on our daily time frame, and we're trading below these 4 hour 200 moving averages, and we consistently crack below and lose each key level. So we're justifying that sort of expectation of further downside, right? And we're doing so based off of this trend. These 4 hour 200 MAs play a huge role. Can we justify that exact same expectation as of the past few days? The obvious answer is no, right? And truthfully, you don't even need to see price action to understand this concept. The price action is more of a privilege. What's this trend, right? Every single person is going to look at these moving averages within 4 seconds and be able to tell me this is a downtrend. We are likely going to continue down. That is where the momentum is. That's what my expectation should be. What's this? Right? It's a shift. The same way that this was a shift, the same way that this was a shift, the same way that this was a shift, the same way that this was a shift to neutral, right? Downtrend, uptrend, downtrend, neutral, uptrend, downtrend. So what's this? That's it. That is your analysis. Congratulations. It took you 4 seconds to be able to determine, hey, this time's different. We're going up. Up is the trend. Then you turn price action back on because it truly is a privilege, right? And you have this idea of, okay, well, I understand where the momentum is favoring. What about the actual price action? What is that saying? Your 4 hour market structure is consistently creating higher highs and higher lows, right? Higher highs, higher lows. So your 4 hour uptrend is good. It's intact. It's saying up. Your daily market structure, if we were to go zoom back out again and assess that, right? Don't forget that one of our arguments for why we were bearish this entire way down was just simply, hey, our daily market structure is consistently creating lower highs and lower lows. Doesn't really matter however you want to see it. Lower highs, lower lows. Is that true? Right here, right now, is that true? This was your previous high. You've cracked above that. Congratulations. Your daily market structure is broken bullishly. You're currently looking for a higher low so that you can have a full blown uptrend across all time frames. So now we have to ask ourselves, okay, if we were going to find a higher low on our daily, meaning if our 4 hour market structure breaks, right, we start to downtrend in the low time frames, where can we look for Bitcoin to smack its face onto high time frame support, lock in a higher low on the daily, and then flip every low time frame back bullishly? The region that I'll be watching for is this exact same zone where we came in and assessed strength, right? This is the first time we've done something very significant in the past 80 days or so. That exact same region is going to be my invalidation. That's also going to be my ideal re-entry zone, my ideal higher low on a daily chart. If we lose that region, then it tells me, hey, this entire move was probably a fluke and you're likely to create another lower low, right? Because if we can't find a higher low here, then where do we find a higher low somewhere higher than this low? My answer is nowhere. We probably don't find it at that point, right? So I would just assume further downtrend from there. To go along with this analysis of ideal regions, right? We have our hourly 200 moving averages, which got chopped up, locally, but as of the past couple of months or so, they've been very, very nicely respected as local bottoms and local tops. Are they relevant as of right now? We can say no, right? That's a fair assessment. They're not relevant as of right here, right now, but they only add confluence to the idea that we already made on higher time frames. So in a more local standpoint, you can assess, hey, is this trend starting to flip by watching these hourly 200s? If they start to curl over, price action starts to lose them, it's likely safe to say that we're going to lose this entire region as a whole, right? That entire, bulk area, this weekly demand zone with those 4 hour 200 moving averages. We're currently using those as like a safety net and additional confluence to the analysis that we already made on higher time frames. The more relevant analysis, right, as of the past few days or so, because those hourly 200s are not relevant as of right now, something has to be, right? Something has to be relevant as of right now, here today. What is relevant are these 15-minute 200 moving averages. So when you have a trend that goes pretty vertical and parabolic and whatever, right? When things start to get very volatile, and you hear people say, "Oh man, I wanted to buy the dip, I wanted to, uh, sell the next high or whatever, but I just can't because it just keeps running without me." And they are crying and complaining about it because price action is just going vertical without them. The reason is because when you zoom into these lower time frames, the chart looks like this, right? You're finding higher lows on your 4 hour chart along 15-minute moving averages, right? 15-minute 200 moving averages. Think about that for a second. Your 4 hour time frame, and by the way, we assessed this yesterday. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't pretty by any means, but we did say in yesterday's market update, if you were going to find a higher low on your 4 hour time frame, these 15-minute 200 moving averages are the ideal place to do so. That's where you've been finding them at, right? So your 4 hour market structure is finding higher highs and higher lows along 15-minute 200 moving averages. Think about that. The only way that you get more bullish than that is by going absolutely vertical, right? Where you just go upwards and you find an even more vertical sort of trend along 5-minute 200 moving averages or 1-minute 200 moving averages, like we were during this price action when we start to stray away from the more local trend. And we can zoom in again and make that assessment as well. When we start to go even more parabolic, Now we're finding hourly higher highs and higher lows along 5-minute 200 moving averages. This is how strong the current trend is. So just think about that for a second. So the point is, don't think of things as cheap or expensive. That's a loser's mentality. Understand the trend, understand that if something is strong, then you're going to be able to determine how strong it is by zooming into the lower time frames. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to trade those lower time frames, but if you don't want to be that person saying, "Hey, I wanted to buy Bitcoin on a pullback, but it just kept ripping upwards and I got left behind and blah 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 and whatever," then the market is forcing you to either be that person or sit on your hands and do nothing. That's the analysis, right? Hopefully nobody's feeling any FOMO or any FUD or anything like that. We've managed to adjust to this new price action very, very well in these market updates and these live streams. We'll move on. ETH/USD. All right. ETH/USD also coming up towards a pretty key resistance region, right? And I say region, not just zone or level or anything like that. It's a bulk region. I'm not trying to be a genius here. I don't want to be a hero. I'm not trying to call a top. All I'm trying to portray is the idea that on a weekly sort of time frame, there's a lot of resistance in this general zone, right? We have a weekly supply zone or even daily, maybe it's not a weekly, right? But we have a daily supply zone along with those 200 daily moving averages, which ETH/USD does tend to respect pretty nicely, right? We do tend to respect the 200 daily moving averages historically and locally. So if we were going to put in some sort of lower high on our weekly chart, then this general region is the ideal spot to do so. When you start to break out in above and reclaim that region as well, you probably want to stop making bearish arguments across all time frames, right? Because at that point, where does your weekly find a lower high? And at that point, I would tell you, well, I don't know. There's no real region for it to do so. So I wouldn't assume that it's going to find a lower high. I would just simply assume our weekly chart is saying, hey, we might create a higher high from here. And who knows, right? Higher high in the weekly means new all-time highs, price discovery, whatever. And our local trend in the meantime on the way up into that is already telling us, hey, by the way, this time's different. I don't want to spend too long on this because it's very much the same analysis that we just made for Bitcoin, right? This 3,300 to 3,500-ish region for ETH/USD is very, very similar to that 47K to 48K region for Bitcoin. It's very, very similar. It's the same context. Your local trend is breaking bullish and it has been bullish for days now. So if you have not adjusted to that, that's something to think about. On the flip side, there's a decent chance that this high time frame trend, while it is still high time frame, in a higher time frame trend, right, a weekly trend, may find and continue a very bearish sort of downtrend, right, on a much larger scale. So our local trend is very, very bullish. We have not done this price action in months. The last time you were above these 4-hour 200s was early December, right? And since then, we've justified our mindset to be that of downtrend, expectation of lower highs and lower lows continuously over and over and over again. And we said, we're not willing to bark at the wind. We're not going to sit here and call bottoms. None of that. We will wait for strength to show and then adjust. This is strength. This is the strength that we've been waiting for 3 months. It has just shown as of Saturday. What happens next is completely unknown to me. Hey, Merc, do we just test this 3250 supply zone and then break our structure bearishly again and then lose that demand zone and lose our 4-hour 200s that we just spent 3 months trying to reclaim? And uh, for ETH USD, we never managed to break our daily market structure bullish and blah, blah, blah. Don't know. Hey, Merc, do we go a little bit higher and kind of chop around this region where we have the 200 daily moving averages and that sort of resistance overhead and then break down below everything, right? And then lose our trend all over again that we just spent 3 months trying to reclaim? Don't know. Merc, do we go to 4K? Don't know. Merc, do we go to 4,400? Don't know. Merc, do we go to all-time highs? Does ETH flip BTC and become the new number one cryptocurrency? I do not know, and I don't honestly care. The only thing that I do know is all of that sounds fun to me. All of that is uptrend. What every single, scenario that you just gave me is uptrend. And the scenarios that we discussed around here when we said, hey, by the way, this time's different, was one of those scenarios is just simply, hey, maybe we come up into like 3250-ish, 3300-ish, and then who knows? Who knows what happens from there? That's an 8% move. 8% sounds fun to me. So I want to participate in that 8%. That's all I know. And however, more exaggerated that this trend gets dragged on, it really does not matter to me. If it ends up being something similar to here and we trend upwards for the next couple months and we create a new all-time high and we go into price discovery and blah blah blah, great. If this ends up being the extent to this move and all of a sudden this is the top and we break back down, we lose our zones, and in my idea, I'm no longer able to justify why we might come up into this resistance, why we might come up into here, why we might come up into here, and all of a sudden, my biggest fear of finding a lower high on the weekly becomes very, very probable. I'll adjust. But since making this analysis, I'm already up 8%, right? Theoretically. Really, I'm probably up like 6, 7%. But anyways, and in the meantime, you give yourself edges. You give yourself a way to make probabilistic assumptions so that you don't have to wait until doomsday, right? Full blown doomsday, where let's say this zone with your 4-hour 200 moving averages is all of a sudden, that's your invalidation, right? Let's say your invalidation for, hey, I'm going to come in and sell my spot all over again is we start closing either multiple 4-hour candles or a full daily candle below this region. And let's say by the time that happens, our 4-hour candle closes here. So all of a sudden you bought here, right? Your invalidation hits for spot trading negative 8% below that. Well, first of all, you should be positioning in spot trading, accounting for this sort of stuff to happen, right? If you are using a manual sort of invalidation, that's just, that's common sense. You should position yourself so that even if that happens, you'll be just fine. But obviously, nobody wants to wait for that to happen to then say, oh, my spot buys probably don't make any sense anymore. So in the meantime, you want to give yourself a more relevant invalidation, something you can adjust to and assume either deeper pullbacks or full-blown drawdowns, right? Or assume a weekly lower high or a market structure break or anything so that you can adjust on the way. These hourly 200 moving averages, just like the Bitcoin chart, are acting as confluence to this idea that any sort of deep pullback, right? Let's say our 4-hour market structure breaks, because it is currently bullish and it has been bullish. Let's say our 4-hour market structure breaks, that idea that this is going to act as a higher low on the daily chart is also being supported by these hourly 200 moving averages, which have acted as your 4-hour market structure higher low and have been a very, very solid pivot as of recent, right? As of past couple months. So you have confluence, but again, that's not relevant locally. So what is the local trend? And honestly, I don't know. I haven't zoomed into this ETH chart. You guys are going to be getting this analysis the same way that I'm seeing it, right? We can maybe say the current trend is something a little bit more um, sloped upwards than those hourly 200s, which are very relevant locally. But even more zoomed in than that, we can say something like the 30-minute 200s, right? So if you lose these, then you can probably assume, since we found our 4-hour higher low along them not too long ago, you can probably assume that your 4-hour market structure is going to break, meaning you put in a lower low somewhere lower than here. If your 4-hour market structure is bearish trending, that probably tells you that your daily has found its high. And if your daily has found its high, you're going to start looking for a low. Where is the most ideal low to put in? Or what's the most ideal region to put in that low? Hourly 200s, 4-hour 200s, and daily demand zone, right? We're just going to assume. So now all of a sudden we have domino affected our way into thinking that below here, right? Let's say you're not taking profit on the way up. Below here on lower time frames, you can probably assume at the very least you're going to get a deeper pullback into your more ideal high time frame swing long zone or whatever, right? And you can then take your profits from there. So we're making probabilistic assumptions on lower time frames, and if our invalidations start to come into fruition, we will then make those assumptions. And if they never come into fruition, I'm simply anticipating that we get to this resistance. And if we break out and reclaim that one, we probably get to the next one, right? Over and over and over again. In the meantime, we're going to keep that idea of, hey, on a very, very high time frame standpoint, right, a weekly chart, if we were ever going to find a lower high on the weekly, this general region is a good place to do so. That shouldn't scare us out of our positions, for the next day or 2 or 3 days or next week or whatever, right? It's a very high time frame analysis. So you should have a pretty solid understanding of where Bitcoin and ETH are at on a weekly sort of perspective, a more local sort of perspective, like a daily and 4-hour, and even the lower time frames and how you can make probabilistic assumptions to adjust to whatever's going on at present time on something like a 15-minute or 5-minute, right, or a 30-minute like ETH. So we'll move on. We'll go to ETH BTC. ETH BTC looks like it may have just put in a higher low on our daily, and if our 4-hour market structure is bullish, then it's safe to make that assumption that this is going to be the low, right, the local low. So if our 4-hour market structure is bullish, we can then come in and say this move is the first break in our market structure. Remember, market structure consists of highs and lows. So all you're saying is you've put in the first piece to the puzzle to flipping this chart back bullish again, right? And if this chart flips back bullish again on the daily, then that probably means that our weekly has found its higher low. And we made assumptions for this too, right? Probabilistic assumptions. We said, hey, if we lose those 200 daily moving averages, if we lose that daily demand zone, then we probably won't find a higher low in the weekly, right? And by all means, you can go back and watch any of the live streams from the past couple weeks or so. That was the analysis. Probabilistic assumptions. We're assuming we won't find a higher low on the weekly, even though our market structure is fully intact, right? We're just making assumptions, trying to give ourselves a way to adjust to the price action. And then we'll zoom in and start to invalidate that analysis that we won't ever find a higher low in the weekly as things occur. So if we start reclaiming this zone, if we start to reclaim a more local trend, like those 4 hour 200 moving averages, if we obviously put in a higher high after creating a higher low on the daily, then in hindsight, this is the higher low on the weekly. Whatever happens from there, we'll take things step by step. So our 4 hour market structure just recently, I guess you could say we broke bullishly, right? If you're seeing this as a lower high. So we broke our 4 hour market structure bullishly. We're trying to close this 4 hour candle above it. And who knows, maybe that is the first sign of strength, right? On a very, very high time frame. We do like these 4 hour 200s historically for ETH BTC. Consistently, they act as macro bottoms and macro tops. They were the sign of weakness that told us to, that told us, hey, red flag, expect a downtrend for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month, couple months, maybe a year, who knows, right? All I know is none of those downtrending ideas sound fun into, let's say, like this demand zone or this demand zone or this demand zone or this one or this one or the next ones or whatever, right? None of those ideas sound fun. We said, hey, 4 hour 200s, we're just going to respect those. They have consistently acted as macro bottoms and macro tops for the past, I don't know, since August of 2021, right? Many months now. So if we can continue showing this glimpse of strength where we're just kind of peeking our head up out above these 4 hour 200s on the current 4 hour candle, remember, you don't want to just simply assume that on one candle close, right, on one or two or three candle closes, all of a sudden your high time frame expectations for the next month or 2 months or 3 months or year or whatever have changed based off of 12 hours worth of price action. That's probably not enough to convince you. I don't think it should be, right? Hopefully there's some other ideas, right? So something like this, that probably shouldn't be enough to just convince you on a high time frame, expectation, something very drastic like that. So this is a glimpse of what may or may not come in the future. If we start to see something along these lines where price action is breaking out above this zone and we're very much threatening a higher high on our daily, then in hindsight, this was the higher low on the weekly, and the local trend is bullish. This time's different, and who knows what that leads to, right? Maybe just simply a test, 5% higher before, kickstarting the downtrend bear market all over again. Maybe another test of this weekly supply zone, 7% higher than that. Who knows? Maybe we break out above this weekly supply zone and head to the next one, 21% higher than that. And if we break out above this weekly supply zone, then your flippening narrative for ETH BTC starts to become, very prevalent, because at that point we're just simply anticipating new all-time highs. Oh, we'll take things one step at a time as it comes, and kind of just make assumptions, as things progress. So keep an eye out on this ETH BTC chart. We're looking for something that looks like this, right? Bitcoin dominance. So Bitcoin dominance, kind of like how ETH BTC is still somewhat testing those 4 hour 200s as resistance, right? More or less, even though we're poking one head out or one candle out above them. We would expect Bitcoin dominance to be doing the inverse. And for the most part, it is, right? Or even more so, it is. We're still trending above these 4 hour 200s. They've acted as the trend several times on the way down. They were our invalidation that made us think, hey, there's a bigger push coming up where altcoins are probably going to struggle holding their weight against Bitcoin. Right? And it very much acted out. This time was different. We tested them as support. and continued to see altcoins struggle. So, truthfully, I'm not all too interested in altcoins, right? Generally speaking, across the board, until this context changes. Until the environment starts to become a lot more altcoin friendly, you're not going to see me, tell you, hey, buy the dip on your favorite altcoin, blah, 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 whatever. The individual asset's always going to matter more than a very broad, very general analysis just on dominance itself. And dominance itself is very flawed. But typically speaking, I'm not going to be too interested in altcoins generally as long as dominance is still in an uptrend, which it very much is. Right? So who knows? With BTC, maybe we see a breakout above those 4-hour 200s. Maybe we see higher highs and higher lows in the daily, whatever it may be, whatever it leads to, and dominance starts to break down from this trend as well. That'd be very nice. That'd be very comforting. And that would also be very easy and smooth for us to adjust to, right? And shift the mindset and start focusing our attention on altcoins that are likely to outperform Bitcoin at that point. So that's going to be it for me today. That is the end of my rambling. That was only 30 minutes. I'm pretty proud of that. That's shorter than usual. Mainly because we didn't talk about psychology today. I'm going to give everybody a break. Um, you know, really hurting everybody's brains with this psychology talk. Monday's stream was a very good psychology 101. Let's sit down, talk real shit. So I'll give you guys a break today. But with that, is there anything that you guys want to see before I head out? On demand TA, questions, comments, whatever it is. No? Everybody just wants a 30-minute stream, huh? You guys really are that tired of my voice. Man. All right, guys. Well, since nobody has anything, I think that's about it. I think we covered every base that we needed to, and that should be enough to hold everybody off until tomorrow's update and even Friday's live stream. So I'll see you all later. Thanks for giving me a easy stream. Always appreciated that you guys come and spend your time with me. Much love, and yeah, talk to you later.